One country, two systems. This was a big promise made for Hong Kong. After 156 years, Britain returned Hong Kong to China in 1997. The agreement said Hong Kong would keep its own ways for 50 years. But this special deal seems to be ending early. Let us see how this happened. Our story begins in May 1839. In a city called Canton in China, officials told Britain's trade leader, Charles Eliot, to give them his opium. China planned to burn all of it. Britain had been buying a lot of tea and silk from China. To pay for these, Britain started selling opium to China. This helped Britain's trade, but China did not like it. China wanted this drug trade to stop. Britain did not agree. Instead, the British military attacked. British ships fought Chinese ships. The fight was not fair. Britain had modern guns and cannons, but China's weapons were old. Britain won easily. Because of this defeat, China had to sign a paper called the Treaty of Nanking in 1842. With this treaty, Hong Kong Island became a British possession. Later, after another war called the Second Opium War, Britain also took control of Ceylon and the new territories. This happened in 1898. From then on, Hong Kong was a British colony. Britain ruled the city. Hong Kong started to follow British ways. While mainland China experienced many changes and revolutions, Hong Kong developed under British control, becoming a different place. The time when Britain ruled Hong Kong was a difficult period for China. Many people in China remember this as a century of humiliation. 2. A different city. After Britain took control, Hong Kong began to change greatly. It quickly became a very important place for money and trade in Asia. It was known as a free port, meaning goods could move in and out easily with few taxes. Western banks and businesses came to the city, helping it become a leading financial center. Hong Kong even developed its own currency and a large stock market, which became the world's 5th largest. People saw Hong Kong as a place where business could grow with much freedom. For many years, it was even called the world's freest economy. The British also brought their legal system, known as common law. This system promised fair rules and clear ways to solve problems, which was new and different from the older Chinese ways. This helped Hong Kong become known for its strong laws and little corruption. Education also improved. Schools were built, like those in Britain, offering more opportunities for learning and development. Beyond business, Hong Kong became a safe home for many people. When there was trouble in mainland China, people often fled to Hong Kong. They ran from hunger, fighting, and big political changes. After the Qing dynasty fell in 1912, many Chinese people came. Later, during Mao Zedong's rule, even more refugees arrived. Events like the Great Leap Forward caused severe famines, and the Cultural Revolution made life very difficult for millions. Hong Kong offered them safety and a new start. These new people brought skills and energy, helping Hong Kong grow even faster. The city quickly changed its economy. In the 1950s, it focused on making textiles, like clothes and fabrics. By the 1960s, it moved to producing electronics and plastic products. From busy factories to global finance, Hong Kong transformed into a vibrant and wealthy city. 3. The Big Agreement. After World War II, the British Empire began to change. Many countries that were once colonies became independent. By the 1980s, Britain had a new question about Hong Kong. The Special Agreement, a 99-year lease on an area called the New Territories, was almost finished. This lease was set to end in 1997. At the same time, China was also changing. Mao Zedong, the country's former leader, was gone. Deng Xiaoping was now in charge. He started to open China's economy. He allowed some capitalism, which meant more business and trade. This made new talks possible between Britain and China. In 1984, leaders from both sides met to talk about Hong Kong's future. The British Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher, and Chinese leaders discussed what would happen after the lease ended. They signed an important document called the Sino-British Joint Declaration. This agreement said that Britain would give all of Hong Kong back to China. This included Hong Kong Island, Kowloon, and the New Territories. The declaration created a special plan for Hong Kong. It was called One Country, Two Systems. This meant Hong Kong would be a part of China, but it would have its own different rules. It would not use China's socialist system. Instead, Hong Kong would keep its capitalist economy. Its laws, freedoms, and way of life would stay the same. This special status was promised for 50 years after 1997. The agreement, however, did not promise democracy for Hong Kong. 4. A New Flag, Old Fears. In May 1989, before Hong Kong's return to China, events in Beijing caused great worry. 1 million people in Hong Kong marched to support democracy. But the harsh response in Tiananmen Square shook their trust. Many people feared what would happen to their freedoms when their city became part of China. This event deeply affected Hong Kong's confidence. On July 1, 1997, the official handover ceremony took place. The British flag was lowered and China's flag was raised. Prince Charles, who was present, wrote in his diary about worries of rising corruption and the rule of law quietly leaving. Just hours after the ceremony, China's People's Liberation Army moved into the city streets. This was a clear sign of new authority and a different future. With the handover, Hong Kong received the Basic Law, its new special set of rules. This law promised that the One Country, Two Systems principle would last for 50 years. It said Hong Kong would keep its own way of life, including capitalism, its legal system, and many freedoms. These included freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and other human rights. However, the Basic Law did not clearly promise full democracy, though some British officials hoped for it. Despite the promises, fears grew. Soon after the British left, annual pro-democracy marches began. Every July 1st, thousands of people took to the streets. Groups like the Civil Human Rights Front called for more democracy and protections for their rights. These marches, though not huge at first, showed that many Hong Kongers were watching closely and wanted to protect their unique identity and freedoms. Around 1997, 1 in 5 people identified as Chinese, showing early shifts in identity. The first big challenge to Hong Kong's autonomy came in 2003. The government proposed a new national security law known as Article 23. This law would ban groups that went against the government and would give police much more power. Many people worried it would take away their basic freedoms. 500,000 people marched against the law throughout the summer. Their strong protests worked. The government had to stop the bill. This was a significant victory for the people, showing their power to protect their rights. 5. Umbrellas in the street. After some years, China's way of ruling Hong Kong became stricter. A new leader, Xi Jinping, came to power in China. He began to control things more tightly, limiting people's freedom and increasing surveillance across the country. Soon, Beijing announced a new plan for Hong Kong's 2017 election for its chief executive. This plan said that only 2 or 3 candidates could run. These candidates first needed approval from a special committee. Also, they had to love the country and love Hong Kong, which meant being loyal to Beijing. Many people in Hong Kong felt this was not true democracy. To show their disagreement, pro-democracy groups held their own informal vote in June 2014. Over 760,000 people took part, clearly showing they wanted full democracy and free elections. Following this, more than 500,000 people marched on July 1, 2014, asking for real choices in their leadership. In September 2014, students started a class boycott. They wore yellow ribbons to show their protest. The movement quickly grew bigger. On September 28th, thousands of people gathered in Hong Kong's Central District. This protest became known as the Umbrella Movement. The police tried to stop the protesters. They used pepper spray and then tear gas. It was the first time tear gas was used in Hong Kong since 2005. To protect themselves from the spray and gas, protesters used their umbrellas. These everyday umbrellas quickly became a strong symbol of resistance and hope for democracy. The umbrella movement continued for 79 days. Protesters occupied important streets and areas of the city. They held peaceful demonstrations, hoping for change. However, in the end, the government did not agree to their main demand for universal suffrage, which meant all people could not vote freely for their leader. The 2017 election still had only candidates approved by Beijing, and Hong Kong's election system remained the same. The protests showed people's strong desire for true democracy, but it was a partial victory at best. 6. The 5 Demands. A murder case in Taiwan started big problems in Hong Kong. In February 2018, a young woman named Poon Hu Wing was killed in Taipei. Her boyfriend, Chan Tong Kai, said he did it. But Hong Kong's laws made it hard to charge him with murder. This was because Hong Kong and Taiwan did not have an agreement to send criminals to each other. China views Taiwan as its own territory, making such an agreement difficult for Hong Kong to sign. So, Chan Tong-kai was only sent to jail in Hong Kong for money laundering. Because of this specific case, Hong Kong's government suggested a new law in February 2019. It was called the Fugitive Offenders and Mutual Legal Assistance in Criminal Matters Legislation Amendment Bill, often simply known as the Extradition Bill. This bill would allow Hong Kong to send people suspected of crimes to other places, including mainland China, even without a formal treaty. Many people in Hong Kong became very afraid. They worried that China's government could use this law to take anyone from Hong Kong for trial in China. China's legal system is very different from Hong Kong's and does not offer fair trials or strong legal protections. This bill seemed to threaten Hong Kong's special freedoms under the one country, two systems promise. Protests against the bill began in March 2019, starting small. About 12,000 people marched on March 31st. But the fear spread, and the number of protesters grew quickly. In April, 130,000 people marched. By June 9th, many people were in the streets. Protest organizers said over 1 million people had joined. It was a clear sign of deep public anger and worry, making it one of the largest demonstrations Hong Kong had ever seen. On June 12th, these protests led to citywide standoffs, and police began using tear gas against the crowds. As the movement became stronger, protesters united around 5 main demands. They used the slogan, "5 demands, not one less." First, they wanted the government to fully withdraw the extradition bill, not just pause it. Second, they asked the government to stop calling the protesters rioters. Third, they wanted all arrested protesters to be freed from jail. Fourth, they demanded an independent review of how the police acted during the protests, as many believed police used too much force. Fifth, they called for Carrie Lam, the city's chief executive, to leave her job and for Hong Kong to have real democratic elections for its leader and legislature. The government did not want to meet all these demands. On June 15th, Carrie Lam announced only that she would suspend the extradition bill. This meant it was paused but could still be brought back later. People were still very angry because it was not a full withdrawal. The very next day, an even larger number of people, estimated at 2 million, marched again. This showed the government that suspending the bill was not enough. On July 1st, protesters even broke into the Legislative Council building. However, Carrie Lam continued to refuse most of the 5 demands. She finally agreed to officially withdraw the extradition bill in September, but the other 4 demands remained unmet, which meant the protests continued with great intensity. 7. The city in chaos. In 2019, protests in Hong Kong grew much larger and more serious. Many people took to the streets, far more than in earlier years. What began as peaceful marches quickly turned into direct clashes with the police. On March 31st, 12,000 people protested. By June 9th, over 1 million people were marching, making it a truly massive movement across the city. On July 1st, a significant number of protesters broke into the Legislative Council building. They caused damage inside, pulling down pictures and writing on the walls. This event showed the deep anger people felt. The government called these actions riots, but for many it was a daily reality of standing up for their beliefs. Clashes between police and protesters became very common. The city streets often turned into battle zones. Police used a lot of tear gas to push back crowds. They also fired rubber bullets, beanbag rounds, and sponge grenades. Protesters fought back with various items, including laser pointers. They built barricades on roads and even used simple catapults. Sometimes tear gas even reached first aid tents, harming those trying to help injured people. This constant conflict made many parts of the city unsafe. As the unrest continued, university campuses also became key sites for conflict. Students organized strikes and large demonstrations. One of the most intense events was the siege of the Hong Kong Polytechnic University in mid-November. Police surrounded the campus, trapping many students inside. They used even more tear gas and rubber bullets. Medics who tried to help the wounded were sometimes stopped or arrested, which raised concerns about human rights. Hospitals quickly filled with injured protesters, and more than 1,100 people were arrested during this long siege. This event highlighted how severe the situation had become, turning academic grounds into battlefields. The ongoing protests and violence badly affected Hong Kong's economy. Businesses struggled as major districts were often shut down by demonstrations and clashes. At the end of October, the city officially entered its first recession in 10 years. The constant fighting and unrest caused serious problems for many parts of daily life and the financial health of Hong Kong. 8. A new law, a new Hong Kong. The COVID-19 pandemic changed everything. In early 2020, the virus reached Hong Kong. The big street protests, which had lasted for many months, stopped because people had to stay home. The government limited how many people could meet. This gave Beijing an opportunity. China's leaders quickly moved to impose a new law on Hong Kong. It was called the National Security Law. This law was very strict. Many people believed it ended the one country, two systems idea, which promised Hong Kong special freedoms for 50 years. Under the new law, many actions, like speaking out against the government, became crimes. These crimes included subversion and terrorism. A new security office was set up in Hong Kong, and special judges were chosen. The city's leader, the chief executive, now had to be a patriot approved by Beijing. This meant they had to be loyal to China. Soon after the law passed, many pro-democracy activists were arrested. Well-known figures like Joshua Wong received prison sentences. Martin Lee, often called Hong Kong's father of democracy, was also arrested. Pro-democracy groups were forced to close down. Even the yearly marches on July 1st were banned. The new law even said that people outside China could be punished for certain acts. Seeing these changes, Britain offered a way for many Hong Kongers to move to the United Kingdom. People born before 1997 could live and work there for 5 years and then apply to become citizens. Nearly 145,000 people took this offer. Now, Hong Kong's future is clearly under Beijing's control. The city's economic freedom ranking dropped. Businesses started to complain as new rules made it harder to operate. John Lee, a loyal supporter of Beijing, became the new chief executive. He was the only person approved to run. The government even warned against soft resistance, saying it was everywhere, even in children's books. Hong Kong has changed greatly. What do you think this new law means for the future of Hong Kong and its people?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world.